The first thing Captain Jarek noticed about the newcomers was their smiles, broad, easy, and unnervingly genuine, like masks worn by actors in a play. Their teeth, perfectly aligned and almost too white, gleamed under the sterile lighting, while their eyes held an unsettling depth, as if they could see straight through him. Standing at the airlock of the Dauntless, they looked more like tourists at a galactic amusement park than emissaries from an advanced civilization, their casual attire and exaggerated expressions clashing with the polished, utilitarian design of the ship. Instead of the imposing presence expected from envoys of such a renowned species, they exuded an almost disarming enthusiasm, as if the seriousness of the occasion escaped them entirely. "Welcome aboard," Jarek said, his voice steady despite the tangle of unease growing in his chest. Behind him, the rest of the human delegation stood at attention, their uniforms pristine but their eyes wary. The two aliens stepped forward, their movements graceful and almost human. Their species, the Vorath, were famous or infamous across the galaxy for their rigid adherence to one universal law: we don't kill. It was the kind of motto that seemed laudable on the surface, but every diplomat in the galaxy knew better. The Vorath had been instrumental in dismantling entire civilizations without ever pulling a trigger. They orchestrated economic collapses, seeded dissent among ruling factions, and manipulated ecosystems to unsustainable extremes. Entire species had fallen, not to Vorath weapons, but to the calculated application of pressure on the threads holding their societies together. Their creed was a shield, a weaponized philosophy wielded with precision. "Captain Jarek, it is an honor to meet you," said the taller of the two, his voice smooth and melodic. "I am Envoy Kel, and this is my associate, Tira. We're delighted to finally encounter humanity in person." "The honor is ours," Jarek replied, forcing a polite smile. "Your reputation precedes you." Tira's smile widened, a hint of mischief glinting in her sapphire eyes. "All good things, I hope." "Of course," Jarek said, though he doubted they believed him. The Vorath delegation exchanged amused glances before Kel gestured toward the corridor. "Shall we begin the tour? We've heard much about human ingenuity. Your starship designs are quaint, yet charming." "This way," Jarek said, biting back a retort. As they moved through the ship, Jarek kept one ear on the conversation behind him. Commander Ellis, his second-in-command, was engaging Kel and Tira with practiced diplomacy, but Yarek's attention was divided. The Vorath's arrival wasn't just a diplomatic formality. Their mere presence carried the weight of countless unspoken threats, a reminder of their unparalleled ability to unmake civilizations without ever firing a shot. For the crew of the Dauntless, it was as if a storm had entered their orbit, its destructive potential masked by a veneer of calm. Their presence had unsettled the crew in ways no one wanted to admit. It wasn't the Vorath's technology or their reputation for nonviolence that set people on edge. It was the whispers, the rumors about how their creed wasn't just a philosophy but a universal constant, a cosmic force that bent reality itself. Supposedly, anyone who broke their sacred rule faced consequences that defied comprehension. Many dismissed it as propaganda, yet the stories lingered, whispered in the halls of power and among the stars, each tale carrying a thread of unease that refused to unravel. The tour ended in the observation deck, where Earth hung like a blue-green jewel against the velvet black of space. Tira approached the viewport, her expression softening. "Beautiful," she murmured. "Your world is truly unique. Fragile, yet resilient." Jarek nodded, though he didn't miss the faint undercurrent of condescension. "We're proud of it." Kel turned to face him, his tone as pleasant as ever. "And yet, it's a world riddled with violence. Wars, conflicts, crime. You humans have an undeniable talent for destruction. We're also capable of great compassion and ingenuity," Jarek countered, his jaw tightening. "Our history is complex, but we learn and adapt." Kel's smile remained fixed, but there was an edge to his gaze now. "Adaptation is key to survival. That much we agree on." Before Jarek could respond, the intercom crackled to life. "Captain, we've picked up an unidentified vessel on the edge of our sensor range," came the voice of Lieutenant Price. No response to hails. Yarek's heart sank. The timing couldn't have been worse. "On my way." He turned to the Vorath. "It seems duty calls." If you'll excuse me. Of course, Kel said, his smile unwavering. We'll await your return. Jarek hurried to the bridge, his mind racing. By the time he arrived, the tension in the room was palpable. The unidentified vessel had drawn closer, its design unfamiliar and bristling with weaponry. Still no response. Jarek asked, his voice sharp. Price shook his head. No, sir. They're running dark, but their weapons are powered up. Raise shields and prepare for evasive maneuvers, Jarek ordered. Let's not take any chances. As the crew moved with practiced efficiency, Jarek's mind churned. The Vorath had a reputation for meddling in subtle but devastating ways. Was this encounter a coincidence, or had they orchestrated it? The thought made his skin crawl. Each passing second felt like a weight pressing down on the bridge as the alien vessel crept closer, its silhouette a looming shadow against the void. Finally, it halted just beyond firing range. A crackling signal came through, and the viewscreen flickered to life. The alien captain was reptilian, his scales glinting under harsh lighting. His expression was unreadable, but the menace in his tone was unmistakable. Humans, he hissed. You are trespassing in our territory. This sector is unclaimed, Jarek replied evenly. We're on a diplomatic mission. The alien's eyes narrowed. Diplomacy? From a species that thrives on war. Spare me your lies. The tension on the bridge was suffocating. Jarek's mind raced, weighing options. They couldn't risk a firefight, not with the Vorath aboard. The consequences, he didn't even want to imagine them. Before he could respond, the doors to the bridge slid open. Kel and Tira entered, their presence commanding immediate attention. Tira stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Captain, she said, addressing the alien commander. Your hostility is unnecessary. Humanity is under our protection. The alien's gaze flicked to her, and his expression faltered. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across his face. The Vorath, he muttered. I meant no disrespect. Kel smiled faintly. Disrespect is irrelevant. What matters is that no harm comes to this vessel or its crew. The alien hesitated, then gave a curt nod. Very well. But do not test our patience. The viewscreen went dark, and the alien vessel began to retreat. A collective sigh of relief swept through the bridge, but Jarek's relief was tempered by suspicion. Thank you, he said, turning to Kel. Though I'm curious. Why intervene on our behalf? Kel's expression held an enigmatic calm, his lips curling slightly as if savoring a private thought. Because we're invested in humanity's survival, Captain. You have potential raw, untamed, but undeniable. Tira's gaze met Jarek's, and there was a flicker of something almost playful in her expression. We're here to help, Captain. You'll see. Jarek nodded, though unease coiled in his gut. Whatever the Vorath's intentions, he doubted they were purely altruistic. As the Dauntless resumed its course, he couldn't shake the feeling that their help would come at a cost. What that cost might be, he could only imagine. For now, all he could do was stay vigilant, knowing that the calm veneer of their alien benefactors could shatter at any moment, revealing intentions that might reshape humanity's destiny forever. Humanity's future might depend on it. The Dauntless had barely resumed its course when the Vorath revealed their first complication. Captain Jarek stood in the briefing room, his hands gripping the edge of the polished table as Kel delivered the news with a serene intensity, his calm demeanor carrying an edge that hinted at a deeper, disquieting confidence. Captain, Kel began, his melodic voice carrying a weight that belied its smoothness. I regret to inform you that the vessel you encountered earlier was not acting independently. It's part of a larger fleet, one that is converging on this sector. Jarek's stomach dropped. How large a fleet? Tira, standing beside Kel, stepped forward. 37 ships, she said, her tone matter-of-fact. A ripple of unease spread through the room, the sharp intake of breaths and exchanged glances betraying the crew's shared anxiety. Some officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their faces pale, while others clenched their fists as if bracing for the inevitable storm. The sheer number painted a picture of overwhelming odds, silencing even the most seasoned among them. The sheer number painted a picture of overwhelming odds, and even the seasoned officers seemed momentarily stunned. Their configuration suggests a raiding party, but their target is unclear. Unclear? Yarek's voice rose slightly, his frustration slipping through. They just threatened us. What else could their target be? Kel's faint smile returned, though it held no warmth. Assumptions are dangerous, Captain. They may have other priorities. However, given humanity's colorful history, it would be prudent to prepare for the worst. We're already on high alert, Jarek said, forcing himself to sound confident. Our shields and weapons are at full readiness. Admirable, Tira said, her sapphire eyes glinting with something that might have been amusement. But insufficient. These raiders are not like the opponents you've faced before. Then what do you suggest? Jarek asked, barely masking his irritation. Kel exchanged a glance with Tira before answering. We propose a joint effort. Allow us to enhance your defensive systems. Vorath technology can amplify your capabilities beyond anything you've encountered. Yarek's instincts screamed against the idea. Accepting Vorath aid felt like handing a loaded weapon to someone who insisted they'd only use it for good, while every instinct warned Jarek that the Vorath's idea of good might one day be defined at humanity's expense. Yet, with a fleet of raiders bearing down on them, what choice did they have? Fine, he said after a long pause. But I want full oversight on anything you modify. Kel inclined his head. A reasonable condition. We'll begin immediately. As the Vorath delegation left the briefing room, Jarek turned to Commander Ellis, who had been silent until now. Thoughts? Ellis frowned, her brow furrowed in concern. It's risky, sir. Letting them into our systems gives them access to everything. But, 37 ships. We're outmatched without their help. Jarek nodded grimly. Keep an eye on them. I don't want any surprises. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Vorath engineers moved through the ship like ghosts, their movements precise and efficient. They worked in near silence, their presence unsettling the human crew. Their movements were unnervingly precise, as if choreographed, and their lack of small talk or hesitation added an air of alien otherness that gnawed at the edges of human familiarity. Some crew members stole uneasy glances, their shoulders tensing with every deliberate step the Vorath took. The faint hum of their tools, accompanied by the occasional flash of strange, pulsating light, only deepened the sense that the ship had been invaded by something otherworldly and unfathomable. Even their faintly shimmering uniforms seemed designed to amplify the sense that they didn't belong. Jarek made a point of monitoring their progress, but the sheer complexity of their modifications was daunting. The Vorath spoke in technical terms that even the Dauntless top engineers struggled to follow. It's like they're rewriting our systems from the ground up, Chief Engineer Liao muttered, her eyes scanning the schematics displayed on her console. The intricate layers of code seemed almost alien in their precision, each line operating on principles that defied conventional understanding. Some functions appeared to utilize quantum states as placeholders, while others dynamically rewrote themselves based on system feedback, creating a living algorithm that responded to stimuli in real time. If one thing slips out of place, the whole system could cascade into failure. It's brilliant, but terrifying. I can't tell if it's genius or madness. Both, probably, Jarek said. Can you keep up with them? Liao shook her head. Not entirely. But they're not hiding anything, at least, not yet. That was hardly reassuring. Yarek's unease deepened as the hours passed. The Vorath worked quickly, and by the time they were finished, the Dauntless was almost unrecognizable. Systems that had been clunky and outdated now hummed with efficiency. The ship's sensors could detect objects light years away, and its shields glowed with a faint, almost organic shimmer. Impressive, Ellis admitted as she reviewed the final report. But I still don't trust it. Neither do I, Jarek said. But we're out of options. Their unease was justified sooner than expected. As the Dauntless approached the edge of the sector, the raider fleet appeared on their sensors. 37 ships, just as Tira had said, arranged in a tight formation that bristled with menace. They're hailing us, Lieutenant Price reported. On screen, Jarek ordered. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the reptilian captain from before. His expression was cold, his tone colder. Humans, he said. You should have turned back when you had the chance. This is neutral territory, Jarek replied evenly. We have as much right to be here as you do. The captain's lips curled into a sneer. Rights? You have none. Surrender your vessel, and perhaps we'll spare your lives. Not happening, Jarek said, his voice firm. The captain's sneer widened. Then you've chosen death. The transmission ended abruptly, and the raider fleet began to close in. Alarms blared across the Dauntless as the crew sprang into action. All hands to battle stations, Jarek commanded. Prepare to engage. The first salvo from the raiders struck the Dauntless shields, but instead of the usual impact, the energy seemed to ripple across the Vorath-enhanced barrier before dissipating harmlessly. The crew stared in astonishment. Shields holding, Price reported, her voice tinged with disbelief. No damage. Return fire, Jarek ordered. The Dauntless weapons, now upgraded with Vorath technology, unleashed a barrage of energy that tore through the nearest raider ship with startling precision. The explosion lit up the viewscreen, and a cheer erupted on the bridge. But the celebration was short-lived. The remaining raiders adjusted their tactics, spreading out to flank the Dauntless. Jarek's hands tightened on the armrests of his chair as he barked orders. Evasive maneuvers. Keep them off our sides. The battle descended into chaos, the Dauntless weaving through enemy fire with agility it had never possessed before. The Vorath's modifications were proving invaluable, but the raiders' sheer numbers were overwhelming. We can't hold them off forever, Ellis said, her voice strained. We need another option. Jarek's mind raced. The Vorath had enhanced their systems, but what else had they done? He glanced at Kel and Tira, who stood calmly at the back of the bridge, watching the chaos unfold. Do you have a suggestion? Jarek demanded, his voice sharp with urgency, each word carrying the weight of the chaos unfolding around them. His gaze locked onto Kel, searching for a lifeline amidst the storm of escalating danger. Kel stepped forward, his expression unreadable, though his hands clasped behind his back tightened momentarily. There is one final measure we can activate, he said, his voice carrying a faint undercurrent of tension that hadn't been there before. A defensive protocol unique to Vorath technology. But it comes at a cost. What cost? Jarek asked. Kel hesitated, then said, it will disable the raiders, but it may temporarily disrupt certain functions on your ship as well. Define disrupt, Ellis interjected. Your systems will recover, Tira said. But you'll be vulnerable for several minutes. Jarek's jaw tightened. It was a gamble, but one they might have to take. Do it. Kel and Tira moved to a console, their fingers dancing over the controls. Moments later, a low hum filled the ship, growing in intensity. The viewscreen showed the raiders' ships faltering, their weapons flickering erratically before dimming entirely. Arcs of energy crackled along their hulls, and the faint shimmer of their shields collapsed into nothingness. The once menacing fleet now drifted aimlessly, their systems overwhelmed by an unseen force that radiated with eerie precision. They're disabled, Price confirmed. Jarek exhaled sharply. Status on our systems? Power levels dropping, Liao reported. We've got about 5 minutes before we're fully operational again. Let's hope that's enough, Jarek muttered. The bridge fell into an uneasy silence as the crew watched the crippled raiders drift in space, the once mighty fleet reduced to lifeless hulks. Some officers exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier relief giving way to a somber realization. They had survived, but at what cost? Jarek's gaze lingered on the viewscreen, a storm of doubt and determination brewing within. The Vorath's intervention had saved them, but the haunting question remained, was this victory truly theirs, or had they merely traded one threat for another? Jarek's gaze lingered on the viewscreen, a storm of doubt and determination brewing within. He couldn't shake the unsettling thought that survival had come at a cost, not just in technology, but in trust. What have we truly gained, he murmured, and what might we have just lost? For the moment, they were safe, but the Vorath's solution had come at a price one Jarek wasn't sure they'd fully paid yet. The Dauntless limped through the void, its once bright systems dimmed by the Vorath's protocol. 5 minutes dragged on, each second crawling by under the oppressive weight of the ship's failing subsystems. The faint, ominous hum reverberated through the bridge, amplifying the crew's quiet dread as they exchanged tense glances, their breaths held in a collective, uneasy rhythm. The faint hum of failing subsystems echoed in the bridge, each sound a sharp reminder of their temporary vulnerability. Jarek's gaze remained fixed on the crippled raiders, their ships adrift and lifeless. Yet his unease grew. Victory was supposed to feel different, more definitive. Instead, it felt hollow, like a note struck in a vast, empty hall, its echo lost in the shadows of doubt. Jarek couldn't shake the gnawing thought that the Vorath's aid had tilted the scales, not in humanity's favor, but toward some larger, opaque agenda. Was this survival, or merely a prelude to a deeper entanglement? This felt precarious, as though they had traded one form of danger for another, unseen but no less lethal. Systems are coming back online, Liao announced, relief edging her voice. Power levels at 40% and climbing. Good, Jarek said. Keep me updated. Ellis, what's our current status? Commander Ellis scanned her console, her fingers flying across the controls. Shields are stable. Weapons at partial capacity. Engines functional but running below optimal levels. We're still vulnerable, but it's improving. Jarek nodded. Price, any movement from the raiders? Price shook her head. Negative, Captain. They're completely inert. The words offered no comfort. Jarek turned his attention to Kel and Tira, who stood at the rear of the bridge, observing the crew with their usual composed detachment. Your protocol worked, Jarek said, his tone carefully neutral. But now we're left with questions. What's stopping those ships from reactivating? Kel stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back. The protocol disrupts their systems at a fundamental level. Their technology will require significant repairs to function again. And what's stopping reinforcements from arriving? Ellis interjected, her tone sharp. Nothing, Tira admitted with a faint smile. But that's where our next step comes into play. Jarek's eyes narrowed. Next step. Kel gestured to the view screen. We must ensure that no reinforcements arrive. To do so, we propose deploying a Vorath interdiction field. It will render this sector inaccessible to external forces. An interdiction field? Liao echoed, her brow furrowing. You mean cutting off faster than light travel? Kel nodded. Precisely. It is a temporary measure, but effective. However, it requires significant power that your ship systems alone cannot provide. Let me guess, Jarek said. You'll provide the rest. Correct, Tira replied. But this will require cooperation. You must trust us. Trust. The word hovered in the air, sharp and unrelenting, like the blade of a guillotine suspended mid-fall, its presence slicing through the unspoken doubts and fragile hopes of everyone on the bridge. Jarek's mind raced through the implications. The Vorath's technology had saved them, but it had also rendered them dependent. If they agreed to this, they would be placing even more control into Vorath hands. Captain, Ellis said quietly, leaning closer. If they control the interdiction field, they'll control this entire sector. I know, Jarek replied. He turned back to Kel and Tira. What guarantees do we have that you won't use this to extend your influence? Kel's expression didn't waver. Our only interest is ensuring humanity's survival. The interdiction field is a means to that end. Nothing more. Jarek's jaw tightened. And if we refuse? Tira's smile didn't falter. You're free to make your own choices, Captain. But consider this, if reinforcements arrive, your current position is untenable. The odds of survival, slim. The bridge descended into an uneasy stillness, broken only by the faint hum of systems struggling to stabilize. Jarek's eyes darted across the room, taking in the expressions of his crew, their worry, their determination, their unspoken trust in him. The weight of command pressed heavier than ever, a reminder that every choice carried a cost, and this one might be far greater than any of them could foresee. Jarek glanced around at his crew, their faces etched with varying degrees of worry and resolve. The choice was clear, but it wasn't easy. Fine, he said at last. Do it. But we retain oversight of every step. Kel inclined his head. A reasonable condition. The next hours were a whirlwind of activity. Vorath and human engineers worked side by side, their collaboration marked by a mix of mutual respect and underlying tension. The interdiction field required a massive network of energy. Conduits and emitters, each calibrated with an exacting precision that left Liao in awe and deeply uneasy. "It's beautiful in its complexity," she admitted to Jarek as they watched the engineers work. "Each connection seems to hum with intent, almost alive, as if the system knows its purpose. Yet, beneath the elegant precision lay an unsettling truth: its seamless integration with human systems hinted at an inherent dominance, as though it could assume control without resistance if it so chose. But it's also terrifying. The way it interlocks with our systems so seamlessly, it feels as though it could overwrite everything in a heartbeat if they wanted it to. But it's also terrifying. If they wanted to, they could weaponize this in an instant." Jarek's expression darkened. "That's what I'm afraid of." Finally, the field was ready. Kel stood at the central console, his fingers poised over the controls. "Once activated, the field will remain operational for 72 hours. During that time, no vessel will be able to enter or leave this sector via faster-than-light travel." "And after 72 hours?" Ellis asked. "The field will dissipate," Kel replied. "By then, the immediate threat will have passed." "And if it hasn't?" Jarek pressed. Tira's eyes gleamed. "Then we adapt. Together." Yarek's lips thinned, but he gave a curt nod. "Activate it." Kel input the final command, and a low hum filled the ship, resonating through the bulkheads like a deep, steady heartbeat. The bridge lights flickered momentarily, casting long, shifting shadows across the crew's tense faces. Some exchanged wary glances, while others fixed their eyes on the viewscreen, where the cascade of energy began to ripple outward, its radiant lattice mesmerizing yet foreboding. The viewscreen displayed a brilliant cascade of energy rippling outward, forming a lattice of light that enclosed the sector. It was breathtaking and unnerving all at once. "Field stable," Liao reported, though her voice was tight. "No anomalies detected." The crew watched in silence, the weight of their decision settling over them. For now, they were safe, but the question lingered: at what cost? Hours later, as the Dauntless resumed its patrol within the secured sector, Jarek found himself in his quarters, staring at a data tablet. Reports from across the ship detailed the Vorath's contributions, each one highlighting their unparalleled efficiency and precision. Yet each line felt like a chain, binding humanity closer to a species whose motives remained enigmatic. A chime interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he said. Ellis stepped inside, her expression grim. "Sir, we've intercepted a transmission. It's faint, but it's from the raiders." Jarek straightened. "What does it say?" "It's fragmented, but the gist is clear," Ellis replied. "They weren't acting alone. Someone, or something, orchestrated this." Yarek's blood ran cold. "Did they identify who?" Ellis shook her head. "No. But the way they referred to it. The Arbiter. Does that mean anything to you?" Yarek's mind raced. The name was unfamiliar, but its implications were chilling. "No," he admitted. "But we need to find out." As Ellis left, Jarek stared out the viewport, the lattice of the interdiction field casting faint shadows across his quarters. The Vorath had bought them time, but the mystery deepened, wrapping itself around the fragile threads of their survival like a tightening noose. Every answer brought another question, and Jarek couldn't escape the growing certainty that this was only the beginning of something far larger and far darker. Who was the Arbiter, and what role did they play in this unfolding game? The question gnawed at Jarek, a chilling reminder of the precarious line he walked as captain. Humanity's survival rested on his decisions, yet this unseen force loomed like a shadow, threatening to unspool everything they had fought to protect. And more importantly, how far was humanity willing to go to survive it? The Dauntless drifted in the silence of the interdiction field, its crew working tirelessly to repair systems and prepare for what lay ahead. The faint lattice of energy enclosing the sector rippled like a living current, its fluid patterns holding back the unknown with an unsettling grace for now. But Captain Jarek knew the reprieve was temporary. In the days that followed, the Vorath proved as methodical as ever. Kel and Tira remained an enigmatic presence, offering solutions without revealing the full extent of their intentions. At one point, they seamlessly bypassed a critical failure in the ship's shielding system, their explanation vague and laced with technical jargon that left even Chief Engineer Liao baffled. It was clear they knew more than they let on, their calm efficiency underscored by an air of deliberate omission. The repairs were nearly complete when Ellis burst onto the bridge, clutching a datapad, her face flushed and her eyes sharp with urgency. "Sir, we've intercepted another transmission," she said, her voice tight. "This one's clearer." Jarek turned sharply. "Play it." Ellis tapped the console, and the bridge filled with the distorted voice of an alien speaker. The words were guttural, broken by static, but the message was unmistakable. "The Arbiter, coordinates confirmed, humanities, failure is inevitable." The transmission cut out, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Yarek's hand tightened around the armrest of his chair, his jaw set as he exchanged uneasy glances with Ellis. Around the bridge, the crew sat motionless, the weight of the message pressing down on them like a tangible force. Yarek's jaw clenched. "Coordinates?" "Yes, sir," Ellis replied. "It's just outside the interdiction field." "Then that's where we're going," Jarek said, his tone brooking no argument. "Kel, Tira, you're coming with us." Kel's calm expression didn't waver. "As you wish, Captain." Within hours, the Dauntless powered out of the interdiction field, its systems humming with renewed efficiency. The Vorath enhancements had made the ship faster, sharper, deadlier. Jarek couldn't shake the feeling that he was wielding a double-edged sword. The coordinates led them to a desolate system, a dying star casting an eerie, blood-red glow over a landscape of fragmented moons and ancient wreckage. The oppressive silence filled the bridge, pressing on the crew as the dim red light filtered through the viewport, staining their faces with a faint, ghostly hue. The debris fields stretched endlessly, punctuated by the skeletal remains of once thriving stations, their jagged edges silhouetted against the dying light. It was a graveyard of forgotten ambitions, where the silence seemed to hum with the echoes of civilizations long vanished. As the Dauntless approached the designated point, alarms blared. "Contact!" Price shouted. Multiple vessels emerging from the debris. The viewscreen lit up with the image of sleek, angular ships, their hulls black as obsidian and bristling with weaponry. At their center loomed a massive dreadnought, its design alien yet eerily precise. "The Arbiter," Kel said, his voice devoid of its usual calm. "Shields up. Weapons ready." Jarek barked. "All hands to battle stations." The ensuing battle was chaos. The Dauntless darted through the debris fields, its enhanced systems allowing it to outmaneuver the smaller ships. The crew fought with everything they had, but the dreadnought's firepower was relentless. Every blast shook the ship, a grim reminder of their precarious position. Amid the chaos, Kel and Tira worked at a secondary console, their movements synchronized and precise. Kel's jaw tightened as he analyzed the incoming data streams, his usually calm demeanor strained under the pressure. Tira's fingers moved like lightning across the controls, her lips pressed into a thin line as she barked rapid instructions to the engineers nearby, her focus unyielding despite the chaos around them. "We've analyzed the dreadnought's power source," Tira announced. "It's heavily shielded, but we can disrupt it, if we work together." Yarek's eyes narrowed. "What's the risk?" "If we fail, the backlash could disable your ship," Kel admitted. Jarek hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He glanced around the bridge, meeting the eyes of his crew. "Do it." The Vorath initiated the sequence, their hands flying over the controls. The air on the bridge seemed charged, a low hum resonating through the ship as the lights dimmed slightly. Sparks flickered from an overheated console, the acrid scent of burning circuits mingling with the rhythmic pounding of the ship's engines. Crew members exchanged tense glances, their breaths shallow, as the anticipation built to a breaking point. The Dauntless weaved through the enemy fleet, drawing their fire as the disruption pulse charged. Finally, a surge of energy rippled out from the Dauntless, striking the dreadnought's shields. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the dreadnought's hull cracked, its systems flickering before a massive explosion consumed it. The remaining enemy ships faltered, their coordination unraveling. A murmur of disbelief swept through the bridge, quickly replaced by shouts of determination as the crew seized the advantage. Price's hands moved deftly over the controls, her voice sharp as she relayed targeting data, while Ellis exchanged a rare smile with Jarek, their relief unspoken but palpable. The Dauntless crew seized the opportunity, eliminating the remaining vessels with precision. As the last ship disintegrated, a cheer erupted on the bridge. Jarek slumped back into his chair, exhaustion washing over him. Status: minimal damage, Ellis reported, a rare smile on her face. We're intact. Kel and Tira approached, their expressions unreadable. You've done well, Captain, Kel said. Humanity has proven resilient. Resilient enough to ask questions, Jarek countered. Who was the Arbiter? And why target us? Tira's gaze softened, a rare crack in her composed demeanor. The Arbiter was a remnant of an ancient intelligence, one that deemed humanity a threat to the balance it sought to maintain. Its elimination ensures your survival, for now. For now. Jarek repeated. Kel's smile was faint, almost sad. The galaxy is vast, Captain. And humanity is still young. We've seen countless species rise and fall, their potential lost to pride or recklessness. Perhaps that's why we watch so closely, to see if your kind can navigate the challenges that others could not. You will face more challenges, more adversaries. But today, you have shown that you are capable of meeting them. Jarek nodded slowly. We'll manage. On our terms. As the Vorath prepared to depart, Jarek stood on the observation deck, watching their sleek vessel disappear into the void. The interdiction field was gone, the sector open once more. The Arbiter's shadow no longer loomed, but its legacy lingered, a stark reminder of how close humanity had come to annihilation and of the strength they had found in themselves to overcome it. For Jarek and his crew, the victory was more than survival, it was a testament to their courage and a call to face the unknown with unwavering resolve. Ellis joined him, her expression contemplative. Do you think we can trust them? Ellis asked, her voice low and edged with skepticism, her arms crossed tightly as she leaned against the bulkhead. Her eyes narrowed, scanning the stars as if searching for an answer in their silent glow. Jarek didn't answer immediately. He stared out at the stars, their light unwavering against the darkness. I think we'll have to trust ourselves first. The rest, we'll figure out as we go. The Dauntless turned toward home, its course steady, its crew united. The fight was over, but the journey had just begun. Humanity's resilience had been tested, its strength proven. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together with resolve, ingenuity, and the unyielding spirit that had brought them this far.